So, working memory is something you've probably heard a lot about if your child's been diagnosed with ADHD or autism for that matter. And it's not that they actually have a memory problem, their memory works just fine. But knowing what to do in the moment is the problem. Remembering in the moment is a problem. And there are two working memory systems. One is images and the other is self-talk. So our frontal lobe, what it does, it, amongst other things, is hold the ability to remember what to do. It guides our behavior. When we have a goal, we need this, right? To get images of our past thoughts and how to move forward, etc. We need the frontal lobe to remember what to do to guide our behavior. And that is a problem in working. Uh, that is a problem in that aspect of working memory for folks with ADHD. It needs a little bit more support. Same with self talk, right? Self talk, kids usually do it out loud until they're like 6 or 7. I've noticed on the spectrum that can go well into adolescence where their self talk is out loud, and that's okay. But something I did for my youth that really helped was that I started doing my self talk out loud because I noticed they weren't doing it. Right. So when I go to cook, I'm like, okay, don't forget, need to make sure I've got the pot holders because anything I take out of the oven is going to be hot. I have like actual scars from the amount of times I burnt myself reaching into the oven. Like this is a thing. And so I verbalize it out loud. And that way, one, helps me, but two, they're seeing that that self-talk happens. And same with when I'm sad, I'm like, okay, Angel, it's okay to have the feelings, but it's not their problem that you have the feelings. So let yourself feel it. You're angry. It's okay to be angry. You're allowed to be angry. It's an emotion you're allowed to have, but you do not need to make that anger someone else's problem. All right. So where is the anger coming from? And I'll verbalize it to myself, right? Like, why am I angry? Ah, my feelings are hurt. My feelings are hurt because when that person did or said that thing, this is what I interpreted. You know what I mean? This was my perspective. Is that the only perspective? And I've done this their whole life, so they also do that self-talk. So helping them build that self-talk, helping them create those images, to pull those images out of the past, right? What have I done before? What have other people done to solve this problem? How can I use that to execute the plan? Um, Working memory just simply doesn't work with ADHD. We can't force it to work. We need to actively do things to work around it. Okay. So trying to force them to build working memory that's not how it's going to work. Um, it gets better as you get older because you get more frontal lobe to work with. But we need to recognize that this is stuff that they're always going to have to actively be remembered. So we need to build it into a different part of the brain that relies on patterns of behavior instead of the brain working the way we think it should. We need to stop trying to make our youth use working memory. Offload content, right? We want to use smartphones, tablets, posters, sticky notes, visuals, like all of those things. We need to verbalize with them the steps that are needed. Wash, rinse, repeat, and be patient to demonstrate that self talk, to encourage the self talk, and to rehearse those when then plans, right? So when you're angry, what then? Right? When your sister pushes you, then you, right? Like we need to rehearse these things. And unfortunately, a lot of that is going to be retroactive. If you're thinking consciously about the experiences that you're providing as a parent, you can start to create more proactive plans because you can start to see what kind of things that they might be participating in the future. This is a lot of when you hear people talking about pragmatic skills, that being able to do when then is a huge part of pragmatics. So we can build that skill by rehearsing because their working memory isn't going to do it for them, right? We need to provide them those tools as workarounds. Here's some information on working memory. All right. Emotional dysregulation in ADHD. So we're told that ADHD is attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, right? So obviously they need to move their bodies and it's about a deficit in attention. I said it's not just about attention, it's also emotional regulation. And we can see that in our youth and young adults fairly easily. Bigger emotions, lots more reactivity, less self-awareness about where those emotions come from. And again, this seems like this is why we work so hard with kids on the spectrum to recognize different facial expressions because we want them to know what it feels like in their own body too. And so we need to model emotional regulation. And that means as the adult, you cannot be disinhibited um, when you're having strong feelings. You need to be inhibited. You need to model not just recognizing your emotions, but being able to control the outward impulses that come with those emotions. So you need a model emotional regulation. That means being able to name your emotions, being able to talk about what those emotions do inside of your body and what kind of thoughts come with those emotions. Okay. And being able to look at that in a cognitively aware way. This is where CBT is my go-to for folks with ADHD because learning to connect those thoughts, those feelings in your body with your actions is a huge part of emotional regulation. We want to provide visuals for this. Okay. Those little things on the fridge where you get to set your feelings. We want those visuals, right? We want the stop sign one that says stop. Are you hungry? Do you need to poop? Right? Are you tired? If either of these things is true, you need to take care of that first, and then we'll talk about the problem. And we also need to verbalize that thought process for managing our own emotions. So, like I was talking about earlier, right? Wow, I'm feeling really angry. It's okay to feel angry. I'll let myself feel angry. Don't have to act angry. I can feel it without it controlling my behavior, right? Where did it come from? And even with as they're younger, if they don't have a grasp on it, being able to go, ooh, my stomach really hurts and my chest feels like all tight and scrunchy and my body is like vibrating. I think I'm angry. Like talk through what it feels like so that they can start to also recognize that for themselves. But those visuals are going to be needed, and the habit of it is going to have to be built up. So it's not a magic solution, it takes time. Here's more about emotional regulation and ADHD. Okay, social skills. This is my favorite part. So I started off as a social skills educator, and I attended all the conferences with Michelle Garcia Winner and Carol Gray and Temple Grandin talking about social skills and all of that good stuff. Um, what I've noticed in working with youth on the spectrum is that most of them actually get social skills just fine when they're applying it to someone else. It's being able to moderate the moment that is the problem. Okay. And so we need to stop focusing on them just having the skills to have friends and make sure we're modeling healthy communication, boundaries, and perspective taking at home, that we're finding them social spaces to go and practice what they already know, and those natural consequences of saying the wrong thing, doing the right thing, all those social interactions that come about, are where they're going to get the best learning from at home from modeling, and then in their own peer-to-peer social spaces. And then finally, we need to be able to accept and seek help. Okay. Um, this isn't something that you're going to be able to do on your own. You are going to have to reach out to community services, find the neurodivergent community, reach out for support. Wherever you find it, reach out to it and make sure that you're accessing as much as you can. And there are going to be times where you just give up and you're like, I can't do this anymore. And that's okay, right? Self care is also part of getting help. Have your own therapist. Make sure you're looking after your own medical problems. Make sure you're doing the work in your relationships to keep them healthy. And when they're not healthy, demonstrate how you end relationships like a responsible adult. These are the things that are going to support your youth the most, is showing how you build that network, reaching out for help, engaging in your self-care, all of that good stuff. So medications. And I know I'm like clicking along. There's a lot of information. I want to make sure you have it all. So there's stimulants and non-stimulants as medication, and then some people need both. And when we look at what the medications do, is what they're trying to do is increase the production of I have them spelled two different ways on here. That's great. Of norepinephrine. I can never say it. The one that creates dopa and dopamine, and that's great. We need that. Okay. The stimulant seems to really help with attentiveness, hyperactivity, that sort of thing. Whereas the non stimulant seems to lessen the impulsivity and help with emotional regulation. So non stimulants they've found are actually really good with people who have ADHD and ODD, for example, or and bipolar disorder. And for some people, they're going to need a combination of both a stimulant and a non-stimulant. One of the things I hear from parents all the time is, my child or I took these meds and they totally turned us into automaton, and I get that. That was either the wrong medication or you didn't stay on it long enough to allow your brain to get used to it. So usually it takes like 3 to 6 weeks for your body, particularly with stimulants, to adjust to the medication and for you to get the actual impacts. And in that 3 to 6 weeks, side effects can be pretty shitty. And if they persist, if you're still not able to sleep, if you still find you can't take care of your nutritional needs, or that you're not feeling your emotions at all, then you need to try a different medication. And that's just how it is. When we remove the option of medication for ourself or our youth, what we need to recognize is what we're saying is that I know that, you're blind, but I expect you to navigate society as if you're not. I know that um, that you don't speak English, but we're not going to give you any information about what these words mean. And we're just going to make you wing it. I know that, you have never used a power tool in your life, but here, go and build this car. Like we just can't, or a house, I guess, if it's power tools, but we just can't expect somebody with ADHD to thrive in society without helping their brain have more access to dopa and dopamine. These things are necessary for emotional regulation, for executive functioning, for motivation, uh, for paying attention. Like we need dopamine in our body. It's designed that way. And therefore not having it is it's making the playing field really, really unequal. So just keeping in mind that this medication, particularly through adolescence and young adulthood, is super important in loading them for success. So keeping in mind that ADHD is a neurological disorder, and in this neurological disorder, there is a neurotransmitter that we've been talking about, the norepinephrine. It's a lot lower in people with ADHD than it is in the rest of the population. It is the building block for dopa and dopamine, which is our reward system. And when we don't have that reward system in the abundance that we need it, we're impaired in the frontal cortex. Okay, this is our attention, our executive functioning, our ability to organize information. Also in the basal ganglia, which is like the way the brain communicates amongst each other, which is focus, impulsivity, inhibition. In the reticular activating system, which is also about self-regulation and attention. And medication increases activity across all of these symptoms. More information about that because I am not a biologist or a neuroscientist. And then forgiveness, right? They're going to be ADHD. They're going to be neurodivergent. We got to just be okay with that. And you are going to make mistakes. You're going to make lots of mistakes. And we just have to be okay with that. And for all of us, we just need to keep trying, be accountable, model that forgiveness, and just be kind to ourselves. If you need any more support on this or any other topic around neurodivergence, please do reach out. I don't have all the answers, but I'm pretty good at finding them. So I'd be happy to hear from you. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.